Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yakyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Atpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidyadravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Bharavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Do we have Deepa?
Yes, I'm right here.
Oh, that is good. We are Deepaful. And did we finish with the second chapter or not? I can't remember.
Yes.
All right. So now, first chapter, Janaka gives, Ashtavakra gives Janaka the teaching. The second chapter is the realization of Janaka. In the third chapter, we have the kicking of the post. So when you're building a fence and you're putting in post holes, you have a post hole digger and you dig the post hole, then you put in the post and you pack it with stones, and then you pour in the concrete. And if you've not made your concrete with the right proportions, after it sets, you kick the post to see if it's sturdy. And if it isn't good concrete, it goes like that. So here we have Janaka kicking the post to see whether, no, we have Ashtavakra kicking the post to see if Janaka's knowledge is steady. So would you help us out, please?
Sure. Ashtavakra vacha avinashinamatmana mekam vigyaya tatvata tavatmajnasya dhirasya kathamartharjane prati. Ashtavakra said, having known the self in its true nature as indestructible, and one, how is it that you, a knower of the self, and one poised in wisdom, feel passion for the accumulation of wealth?
So King Janaka was a king, even though he's a realized person. He continues to do the things that kings do. He spends money, he wears fancy clothes, might even have a jeweled turban, has lots of wives, which he enjoys, wages war against his enemies, marries off his daughter to a good prince. So the custom is, if you want self-realization, you take sannyas, you leave the world. What concern have I for worldly things? Like Ramana Maharshi, like Adi Shankara. So here Ashtavakra says, here you are still behaving in the world like a bogey, a desirer of desires. You say you are a knower of Brahman. Fui. Let's see what happens. Going on. The point is this. The point is this. Many of us think that realization has something to do with our external behavior. It does and it doesn't. The person of steady wisdom is obviously going to be moving in the world in a different way because they're no longer identified and attached. Yoga Vasishtha has a wonderful image. The fool is like the person who's standing on the bank of the river in the hot Indian sun, roasted from head to foot. But the person of steady wisdom, the Stita Prajna, is like a person who's out in the river with its cool waters up to their neck. Now their head is still roasted like the other guy. They're cool below the water. So the backside of the mind, I don't know how else to say it, is always shunyata, empty. It's only the surface of the mind that interacts with the world. Now, people who themselves are in ignorance can be confused because they have romantic ideas about the way the Stita Prajna should behave. It can be confusing. Well, I don't know whether Swamiji's completely realized. He seems to like to drive in fast cars, Oh, I saw Swamiji get angry. Oh, no, maybe he's not really realized, all this kind of nonsense. It's the ignorant having ideas about the person of steady wisdom. So let's go on and see if we can penetrate more deeply into what this is like. Going on, please.
आत्मज्ञानादहो प्रीतिर्विषय ब्रह्म गोचरे शुक्तेरज्ञानतो लोभो यथा रजत विभ्रमे. Alas, just as, due to ignorance, a seashell is sought, mistaking it for silver, even so, due to the ignorance of the self, there is attachment to the illusory world of the senses.
So, Ashtavakra is saying, you seem to be attached to this, that, and the other thing. Doesn't look like you're a person of steady wisdom to me. poking at that post. Shankara is very clear. If the mind is still extroverting into the world, seriously, there should be no talk of liberation. However, you and I from the outside may not know how unattached a person is inside. Those of us who've read the book I Am That we're going through on Wednesday mornings, one of the questioners gets all freaked out because Nisargadatta Maharaj liked to smoke. Oh, here you are smoking. I thought you would have no desire. You seem like, are you addicted to smoking? And he basically says, why bother to get rid of it? It doesn't touch me. But this is a very subtle part of the teaching. You have to be very careful. You and I are not rationalizing our suffering. Next verse.
Vishwam Surati Yatredam Taranga iva sagare Sohamasmiti Vigyaya Kim Dina iva dhavasi. Having realized I am that from which the universe arises, like waves from the sea, why do you run about like a wretched creature?
So he sees Janaka fulfilling his prarabdha karma as a king. Now, those of us who studied Tripura Rahasya, one of the best stories in the whole thing, in fact, it takes up about the first quarter of the book, is the story of Hemaleka and Hemachuda. Maybe some of you remember that. So Hemachuda is the stupid prince. Hemaleka is the wise sage wife. So she instructs him. There's one particular episode where he goes up the stairs of this crystal tower and he goes into meditation, forcibly stopping the mind. He sees darkness. Who's at the self? Plunges within again and he sees light. And this is funny. Maybe is the self diverse? Does it a third time and he falls asleep. Finally, of course, this is an abridgment of my process and your process of learning to meditate. Finally, everything clears out. And there's this deep, deep peace. Comes out and goes, oh, wonder of wonders, the world is gone. It plunges back into samadhi. And then wifey comes. She comes up the spiral staircase and she sees him deep in samadhi. She goes up to him and tugs on his kurta. Honey, honey. Opens his eyes like a drunkard. What do you want, kid? How is it that you knowing of the state, you're not in it all the time? Leave me alone, leave me alone, leave me alone. And he goes back in and she said, honey, honey. how can it be perfection if its gain or loss is accomplished by the opening or the closing of the eyes, the length of 8 grains of barley? You are far away from perfection. Meaning, Hemachuda now needs to see the self in and through the world. So the test here, do you still have aversions to the world? Do you crave aloneness? Are you protecting all the time so you can be blissful? So Janaka seems to be a person active in the world, apparently enjoying having a good meal, enjoying it. The ladies come out and dance, he enjoys it. What Ashtavakra does not mention is, if there's no dancers tonight, does the king get upset? Let's see. Going on, next verse.
Shritvapi Shuddha Chaitanya Matmanam Ati Sundaram Upasthityanta Samsakto Malinya Madhigachati. Even after hearing that the self is pure consciousness, supremely beautiful, how can one yet be deeply entangled in sensuous objects and thus become impure?
Yes. Ah, you're supposed to be a pure yogi, a Dundee Swami, maybe. Leaving the world, wearing the orange cloth, being an ascetic in the forest. How is it that you're still being a king with all the busyness of kingship? So he's testing him. Does he have ideas about spirituality? And of course, he's poking to see how steady Janaka's wisdom is. See if he reacts. Poke. Poke. Next verse.
Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Sarvabhutani Chatmani Munir Janata Ascharyam Mamatva Manuvartate. This is amazing that the sense of ownership or mindness should still continue in the wise men who have realized the self in all beings and all beings in the self.
Yeah, what kind of realization is this? You still think it's my state coach that the horses are being pulled around again. It's my palace. This is my favorite necklace. You seem to be having thoughts of I-ness and minus. I thought the person of knowledge has given all that up. And they have. People come in, oh, you're supposed to be living in a little mud hut without anything. How is it that you own stuff? You own a house. You have a 401k. That's antithetical to knowledge. Let's see if it is. Next verse.
आस्थित परमाद्वैतं मोक्षार्थेऽपि व्यवस्थित आश्चर्यं कामवशगो विकलकेलिशिक्षया. It is strange indeed that one abiding in the transcendent, non-duality, and set for the goal of liberation should yet come under the sway of lust and distraught by his sexual habits.
So Janaka is probably not a young man by this point. You know, the primary sex organ human beings have is between their ears. So here he is, an old man, and he's still staring at pretty girls and, having fun in his harem. Again, for a king, much of that was politics. He might have had 500 wives, and most of them were daughters of other kings. These were political involvements. But that's not the point. He was enjoying it. Was he doing it? I thought, a enlightened person, the sex drive goes away. What's this about? You're not acting the way I think an enlightened person should. Next verse.
उद्भूतं ज्ञानदुर्मित्र मवधार्याति दुर्बल आश्चर्यं काममाकाङ्क्षयेत् कालमन्तमनुश्रित. Strange it is that knowing sex to be an enemy of knowledge, even a man who has grown extremely weak and has reached his last days should yet desire for sex gratification.
Yeah. What can I say? Right, we have the comic stereotype of the dirty old man. And if you have enough money, you can act out on that, and even in our culture. Yeah, now you can take the little blue pills, so you can still do the mufti pufti. But is that antithetical to realization? Janaka seems to not be behaving like a sannyasi, like an ascetic. Is there an inconsistency? Is Janaka fooling himself? Now, if we go back to the second chapter, sure sounded like he had a very deep realization. Going on.
इहामुत्र विरक्तस्य इहामुत्र विरक्तस्य नित्यानित्यविवेकिन आश्चर्यं मोक्षकामस्य मोक्षादेव विभीषिका. It is strange that one who is unattached to the pleasures of this world and the next, who discriminates the eternal from the ephemeral, and who aspires for liberation, should yet fear the dissolution of the body.
Yes. So here Janaka, worried about his blood pressure, goes to the doctor if he's got chest pains. Now, some sages get medical treatment and some do not. Swami Tapovanam died of dysentery. They thought it would be eminently treatable. But he was done. He was ready to go. Other people go ahead, they get medical treatment, they preserve the body. So he sees in Janaka what looks like a desire to preserve the body. We don't know what it was actually going on. Maybe he caught him at the gym in the basement of the palace. Took a Pilates class. Next verse.
धीरस्तु भोजमानोऽपि पीड्यमानोऽपि सर्वदा आत्मानं केवलं पश्यन् न तुष्यति न कुप्यति. The wise person ever sees the absolute self and is neither pleased nor angry, indeed, even when fettered and feasted or tormented.
So the scriptures say the man or woman of steady wisdom has samadrishta, this equality of vision. Not attached when pleasurable things happen, not afflicted when non-conducive things happen. Maybe he's seeing Janaka really enjoying a good meal or a good concert, getting irritated at a minister who's not doing their job. Or you're not behaving the way I think Stita Pragna should. Again, he's kicking the post, testing to see whether or how Janaka will react to these apparent attacks. Next verse.
चेष्टमानं शरीरं स्वं पश्यत्यन्यशरीरवत् संस्तवे चापि निन्दायां कथं क्षुप्येत महाशय. A great-souled person watches his own body acting as if it were another's. As such, how should he be perturbed by praise or blame?
So the ideal, the Stita Prajna, does not see their own body as different than anyone else's. They're not at all affected by praise or censure. They just let it pass by. But for all we know, Janaka had his cabinet sitting around the cabinet table, and they all were saying what a wonderful king he was. Seemed to be enjoying praise. Doesn't seem to be fitting the picture. Going on.
Maya matramidam vishwam pashyan vigata kautuka api sannihite mrityau katham trasyati dhirathi. Realizing this universe as a mere illusion and having lost all zest in life, how can even such a man of poised intellect fear the approach of death?
Yes. So, does Ashtavakra see that Janaka seems to be doing what he needs to do to preserve his life? You'd think he would have no zest for life, not care whether the Green Ripper comes or not. He's not behaving the way we think an enlightened person would. Going on.
निःस्पृहं मानसं यस्य नैरश्येऽपि महात्मनः तस्यात्मज्ञानतृप्तस्य तुलना केन जायते. With whom can we compare that great sage, whose mind is free from desires, who, even in his frustration, experiences contentment in his self-knowledge?
Yes. So here Ashtavakra says, for the real person of steady wisdom, even if they're in a frustrating situation, they have samadrishta, patience, equanimity. Now, if we are identified with all these marks of the person of steady wisdom, chances are there's still a piece of our mind that has splintered off. That's doing, how am I doing? Am I living up to my ideal? Can people see how holy I am? I polished my halo this morning. Oh, I may be a person of steady wisdom, but I think I also still need to be doing practices and be a goody goody. Hey, very holy. Still some attachment to being a spiritual person. So this is the essence of what Ashtavakra is testing in Janaka. Next verse.
स्वभावादेव जानान्यो दृश्यमेतन्न किञ्चन इदं ग्राह्यमिदं त्याज्यं स किं पश्यति धीरधि. Why should that wise-minded man who knows that the perceived world in its own nature has no substance consider one thing acceptable and another unacceptable?
So here he's seen the king saying, it is acceptable for this village to pay their taxes. It is not acceptable for this village to not pay their taxes. Send the soldiers. That doesn't seem to be the actions of a sthita prajna. Scriptures say they find nothing acceptable or unacceptable. But does this mean you sit in some cave drooling in your diaper? Not necessarily. Going on.
अन्तस्त्यक्तकषायस्य निर्द्वन्द्वस्य निराशिष यदृच्छया गतो भोगो न दुःखाय न तुष्टये. He who has given up all worldly passions from his mind, who is beyond the pairs of opposites, and who is free from desires, to him objects of enjoyment, unexpectedly reaching him, can cause neither pleasure nor pain.
Yes. So the ideal notion of the person of steady wisdom, objects come, they don't rejoice in them particularly, objects go away, they don't grieve, does not add to their bliss. It's like a thimble full of water added to the ocean. But Janaka seems to be having a good time, enjoying stuff, going on.
That was the end of the chapter, starting the next.
Okay. So he's poked at Janaka. For how many verses did we have in that chapter?
14.
14. It's a short.
Yeah.
So let's now see with Janaka's response if he's filled with shame and says, "You're right, Guruji. I was faking it. You've seen through me. I'm going to go back to my zafu and meditate some more." Or let's see how Janaka responds. Next chapter.
Janaka uvacha hantatmakyasya dhirasya khelato bhogalilaya nahi samsaravahi mudhe sah samanata. Janaka said, O marvel, the man of understanding, the knower of the self, who plays the sport of life, has no comparison with the deluded beasts of burden of the world.
So the idea here is we cannot measure or judge the person of steady wisdom by the same standards as we do other people. Now we have to be very careful about this. This is not meant to excuse bad behavior. If someone says they're enlightened and they're a predator on young girls, they need to be held responsible. You don't rationalize, oh, they're enlightened. They're teaching through that's horseshit, is what it is. Yeah. One of the things the person of steady wisdom does do is they push the automatic pilot button on the equipment. They are out of control. They're no longer having a paranoid observer on the shoulder. How am I doing? Is this okay? And what do they think of me? Now, usually, if the person has done sadhana for a length of time, they rooted out most of their bad habits. Not always. By the time knowledge dawns on the mind, hopefully they're not jerks. But there are all sorts of stories of wandering dervishes and agoris, and you look at the stories of like Shams of Tabriz meeting Rumi. We find these people out of control. They don't fit any recipe. Yet deeply immersed in the sound. So you really can't tell the state of another person simply by their behavior. And frankly, it's not worth the pursuit. You realized or not, just pursue realized or not. It's it's a pointless journey. We should only do our own yoga. But you know if you're identified or attached. And one lets the bodies, the body, mind, intellect, literally the equipment, fulfill its role in the great Leela, the great play of life. So back to Tripura Rahasyam, those of us who studied that. After Hemachyuta gets enlightened, his brother and father, Muktachyuta and Manichyuta, they get enlightened. And then Hemaleka enlightens all the ladies in the court, and the ministers get enlightened, and everybody in the city of truth gets enlightened. The parrots, quack, 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 know the self, know the self. Actors portray plays on the stage ridiculing ignorance. Even the prostitutes are enlightened. Wonderful thing that it says, meaning these people did not leave their swadharma. They continued to play their role in the great drama of life. Some of us have a leading role. The Jesuses, the Buddhas, the Ramana Maharshi. Most of us have a bit part. Some of us are just supernumeraries. We don't even get any lines. True story. So in 1994, I was in Coimbatore. I went to see Tejo Mayananda there. And at the Chinmaya Center there, someone had said, there's a woman here in the town who was one of Swamiji's earliest disciples. Deeply, deeply realized person. You should go see her. So I was there with a couple other guys. So we made an appointment to come see her. She lived in this small apartment. She was sitting on the couch watching television. A pair of slacks and a shirt. I mean, just like any other lady living in the city. She was a widow. But she was just gone. Came in and just sat with her. Didn't say a whole lot. But she was so deep in this. Not a teacher. Didn't do satsangs or anything. Just an ordinary Indian housewife living in Coimbatore. The deep knower of Brahma. Palpable presence around. So you can never tell from the outside. Every once in a while, you find a person of steady wisdom who, in fact, are rascal. Doesn't mean you should necessarily get involved with them, but you really can't necessarily tell by their behavior. All right, next verse.
Yatpadam prepsavo dina shrakradya sarvadevata aho tatra sito yogi na harshama mupagachati. O marvel, the yogi does not feel elated abiding in that state, which Indra and others hanker after, and become unhappy because they cannot attain it.
Yes. So the person of steady wisdom, even though they have attained samadhi, is not attached to it. If you're attached to samadhi, then you start jonesing for it. I want deeper bliss. I want more bliss. I want more bliss. And I'll give that. Now, that doesn't mean they may not do spiritual practices. Listen carefully. The sadhak, the seeker, the mumukshu is seen to be doing spiritual practices so that they may purify their mind and realize the self. The sadhu, the siddha, the person of steady wisdom, may also be seen to be doing spiritual practices. But it doesn't add to their knowledge of the self. It's what's enjoyable to them. It's the highest form of worldly pleasure. I do not teach scripture 5 times a week because I've got some notion that you need it. In fact, you have nothing I want, but I enjoy it. For a guru, a fit student is an object of desire. Brings me great joy to revel in the halls of Vedanta. But even that, something you can't be attached to. So the bottom line here is don't try to be a realized person. Know you are Brahman. Have no particular concern for what the bodies do, the body, mind, intellect. A phrase I like to use, the person of steady wisdom is out of control. There's no more controlling anymore. Now, don't ever forget the dharma of the body is karma. I'm out of control. I'm going to get on the freeway and drive 90 miles an hour because I'm out of control. And that doesn't mean you're not going to get stopped and thrown in jail. Does not free us from the consequences of our behavior. I like to say it's liberty, not license. But if you've been through the process, those screaming voices of raga and dvesha have been silenced to an enormous degree. Then you begin to move through the world from your intuition, which is an intelligence that's beyond human rational thought. What's the slogan I heard either today or yesterday? About whether or not you should plan. Trust God, but soak your beans overnight before you make dinner. Not a good one. Next verse.
तज्ज्ञस्य पुण्यपापाभ्यं स्पर्शो ह्यन्तर्न जायते न याकाशस्य धूमेन दृश्यमानापि संगति. Indeed, the heart of one who has comprehended the self is not touched by virtue and vice, just as the space is uncontaminated by smoke, even though apparently it exists in space.
Yes. So, example, we would see Swamiji get angry. And he would say, I do not get angry. I use anger. I keep it in my pocket. And I take it out and I use it. And then when I'm through, I put it back in my pocket. The Tibetans call this crazy wisdom, where you spontaneously respond to the now, where we don't rehearse life. Now, that doesn't mean if you've got a job interview that you don't do practice interviews with questions and things like that. But in general, for the jnani as they move through life, they have no idea what they're going to say or do from moment to moment. I tell people I'm the ball bearing in God's pinball machine. And God whacks the paddles, and I go, having no idea what's next. And then I come down, I think, okay, it's over, and God goes, whack, and some point I'll go down the gutter on the side, and it'll all be over. But it's enormously peaceful to have no real concern. It's all perfect. which is beyond worldly ideas of right and wrong, good and bad. Any thoughts on this? Next verse.
आत्मैवेदं जगत्सर्वं ज्ञातं येन महात्मना यदृच्छया वर्तमानं तं निषेधं क्षमेतक. The wise man, who has known this entire universe to be the self alone, acts spontaneously. Who can forbid him? Who can forbid him?
Yes. So there are no rules. They may do ritual, they may not do ritual. There's no right, no wrong. So this is the culmination of the renunciation of the sense of agency. There's no me there doing the doing. It's just qualities of mind and the force of the past and the desires of other people. That becomes more and more the agent. It's what other people want. A lot of young people were going to therapy, they're all caught up in healthy boundaries. Do you have healthy boundaries? Person of steady wisdom has no boundaries at all. None. And this is different than having an idea, I want to do good works. There's nothing wrong with that. For a person who's identified with ego, that's incredibly important karma yoga. Do good, be good. Serve the society. The jnani is always in the eternal now. Has no idea what they're going to do or say from moment to moment. And again, becomes so much less burdensome, no burden at all, if your identity is Brahman. Very careful. If you think you're a spiritual person, you think you're a realized person, you're questioning whether you're a realized person, you're still a fool. Get out. Next verse.
आब्रह्मस्तम्भपर्यन्ते भूतग्रामे चतुर्विधे विज्ञस्यैव हि सामर्थ्य मिच्छानिच्छा विवर्जने. Of the four categories of existence, from Brahma down to a grass blade, it is the wise one alone who has the capacity to renounce desires and aversions.
Yes. So, from the lower beings who are all about eating and surviving and fornicating, all up to the great devas, the gods, and the siddhas. I'm powerful, I can do this, do that. Only the Stita Prajna, the person of steady wisdom. I call it, you give the big middle finger to the entire world. No concern. And this makes one fearless. You're able to speak truth to power because you have no concern for consequence. We're able to be generous because we have no attachment to our money. We're able to truly help other people because we now know how to hold sacred space. Which is the greatest of all healers. Next verse.
आत्मानमद्वयं कश्चिज्जानाति जगदीश्वरम् यद्वेति तत्स कुरुते न भयं तस्य कुत्रचित्. Rare indeed is the one who knows the self as one without a second and as the Lord of the universe. He does what comes to his mind and has no fears from any quarters.
Yeah. And who knows that the Lord of the universe is the ultimate agent. There's a famous Zen koan, which I love. From where you are sitting, move the distant boat across the water. It's not about having psychic powers. It's the same intelligence and energy that's making your eyes blink. Is spinning galaxies. Just as you do not need to be there as an eagle to make your hair grow or your cells divide. Your ego is absolutely superfluous to your body acting in the world. You will experience movement in the mind, perhaps a desire, a choice, and you act. You may not even have that much. You may just find yourself acting. But the yogi has given up any personal sense of doership. This is what the Master Jesus meant when he said, I of myself do no thing. It is the Father within that doeth the work. Jesus, how are you able to heal all these things? And the Master says, my Father always hears me because I do his will. Intuition, right? Put your hands on this person. Well, that was pretty cool. No sense of agency. Be empty. Be a transparency. So that divine power may come through. Or not. All right, one more.
Jim, that was the end of the chapter.
Perfect. Great place to stop.
We
So,
finished chapters today.
so to sum up this teaching of this chapter, in the last chapter, Ashtavakra was kicking the post, trying to see if Janaka still had small senses of agency. I'm a realized person. I should do this. I should not do that. And Janaka says, well, I'm not a realized person. I am Brahman. And the Lord does it all. I have no concern for it. I'm out of control. I have fallen into the river of life. Another one of my favorite images, and then we'll end with this. There are moths that look like dead leaves. And if there's a wind and there's a dead leaf, the wind can pick up the leaf and it moves around. And it looks just like the moth beating its wings, flying around. But the moth still has something driving it. The leaf is dead, being blown about by the wind. So also the person of steady wisdom is dead to this world. Yet they are blown about by the wind of guna and karma. It looks like a desire of desires, but it's not. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.